Hi, it's Mark from the Digging Deep podcast. Just a quick one before we get started. Over the past few weeks, we've had more than 15,000 views and listens across the podcast, which is brilliant. So first of all, thank you. But what we are seeing is that a lot of people are watching and listening and not subscribing. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to subscribe, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a big difference and helps us keep growing, bringing in great guests and improving the show each week. Also, give us a follow on social to keep up with everything we've got going on. Right, let's get on with this week's episode.
Here we are again, Mark.
That's it, mate. Here we are, another week.
Here we are. Yeah, another week, another day. They say another dollar. I wish it was that easy.
That's it.
But yeah, today's a good one for me because I thought we'd talk about construction health and safety. I don't know what we call the episode. Over the top or still not enough, but a bit controversial. You know, we'll talk about has construction health and safety gone too far. I mean, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that why it probably hasn't. With my own experiences. And it's, you know, safety versus the common sense on the UK construction sites. Construction safety, you know, what is it? Bureaucracy and necessity. I don't know, everyone's going to have their argument. Depends on what side of the field you're on. And of course, the big subject at the moment is obviously mental health in construction. You know, and I'd like to actually discuss whose responsibility it actually is, you know. And I've actually been involved, funny enough, after I came away from the Mental Health Summit in London, before Christmas last year, in the Gherkin, there was a massive argument, and I mean a heated argument in the pub around this subject about why should it be my responsibility if you jump off a tower crane? But we'll get into that. But look, before we do, Mark, we normally say what's doing your head in. Have you got anything this week, or you know?
Yeah. Do you know what's doing my head in this week, right? You. How about this, right? Because you mentioned last week about the weather, and this is what does your head in, right? If the weather's good, you can wash your car, and you can drive around, and it's just a little bit of dust on it, yeah. And you think, oh, I could get away with not washing that for a few more weeks, you know. But where the weather's been a bit weird, you wash your car. You get a few days of good weather, then you get a bad day, and there's like mud on the road and the car's wrecked, and you think I've only just washed that 3 days ago, like that needs another wash. And I'm not talking about a little bit, I'm talking about loads. And you think, where does all this muck come from, and how does it end up on my car? So it's just doing my head in the amount of times I'm having to wash the car, Mark, because of the inclement weather. I either rain and wash my car for me, or stay warm, and then I just got to worry about the dust. But when you mix it up a bit, it's just wash weather, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I took a chance today because it was good weather. Got it clean. See how long it takes, but yeah, I'll get your pain. But that's the pain of having a car, isn't it? I mean, what do you want me to do there? Do you want me to come around and do it for you? I don't know.
Yeah, do you mind?
But I ain't got nothing that's doing me head in, really. But what I have thought I'd say was, when we get into this subject of health and safety, I'd like everyone to set the scene of what it was like when I was growing into it and how different it was. I mean, completely different. I think if you go back to the pilot, I remember telling you the story about the chimney stack and the guy having a shit down the chimney stack and stuff like that. And these type of stories are just legendary. I mean, I remember. I mean, how we're still out and how we even stayed in construction, I don't know. But everyone forgets about a bit of the tomfoolery, really, the messing about that we had. And I remember Watford Police Station. We was doing a refurbishment, and they were building a tunnel basically and a holding area in the police station because the magistrates' court was underneath. So all the mincing they had to do and the opportunity for someone to escape perhaps and run down Watford High Street, they built this tunnel up into the magistrates' court. And we were there, and I remember my mate Skinhead Dave, and he was doing a bit of this and that, concreting and bits and pieces, and I was a carpenter, and we used to mess about, it was his job now at the end of the job to try and scrape all the concrete off the tarmac and bits and pieces or in the walkway. So you can imagine, you've got the back of the police station where the police are actually in. They come out of the back and there's a car park, and the car park's here to the right of you, and just in front of you as you come out that back door, that's where the new bit was, where the stairs go down. It's like a caged off stairs, and you'd go down, walk down, and you could put the person, there'd be like an outside bit where they would be walking, the prisoner would be walking ready to go into his bits. And Dave was down that bit, and he'd been spraying everybody, messing about, doing that, getting things done. So I'm going to get this twat back. So I'm looking over the wall down, the little parapet wall down there where the cage hadn't been built yet, but it was about to be, be put on to finish off. And I'm doing some cleaning. I don't know what I'm doing. We're giving it to each other. And that day, the chief head of the Met, the chief constable of the Met, was in the Watford police station doing a time and motion study. And every time there was a shout, obviously they all run out the back of the thing, Keystone cops, into the cars, and off they went. And he was one of them. and I can't really say who it was, I don't think, because I think I might get arrested again. And so anyway, this is going on and out throughout the day, and Dave's pissing me off now. So I get a bucket of the dirtiest shit of water I've got. I just threw it down on him, straight over him, got him completely. And he's got the old pressure washer trying to clean the concrete off the floor, and he's going fucking mad. So he's like running up the stairs. Just as that, the police, there's a shout. They all come running out, and this chief inspector, he's trying to do me with the pressure washer straight on. Of course, I've dived out of the way, and he's took this guy completely out. Completely out. I've got about 10 stories working for this company. I think it was Durkins we was working for at the time. And I just think that's the type of thing that you used to do on site. It was all that kind of thing. And nobody got in trouble. So I think listeners need to understand where I've come from, and they might say, "Oh, you're a fucking dinosaur." I don't know. I just wanted to say, let's set the scene, because as health and safety come on a long way, did we get away with murder really, or have we kind of gone over the top? So that's what I wanted to talk about today, Mark. Construction has changed massively in the past 30 years that I've been in it. Hard hats, rams, toolbox talks, site inductions, mental health training now, permits to work, compliance paperwork and a bit more compliance paperwork. People are still seriously getting injured despite of all that, and people are still dying. And and construction has still one of the worst mental health records of any industry in Britain. So today we're asking the question: has construction health and safety gone too far, or not far enough? And Mark, let's start off with the facts, as we always seem to do at the moment. How dangerous is construction actually today?
Well, let's have a look. Let's drill into some data. Look, in 2024 to 2025, there was 124 workplace deaths across all industries. 35 deaths in the construction alone, the highest of any sector. Construction accounts for roughly 6 to 7% of the UK workforce, but around 28 to 31% of the workplace deaths. The common cause of death in construction is falls from height. Across all industries in 2024-2025, 35 workers died from falls from height. Other major causes of construction incidents and accidents include struck by moving vehicles. This one is just what you just said, objects falling from height. Machinery accidents, structural collapse, electrocution, that's one. The HSC data suggests workers are around 5 times more likely to suffer a fatal accident than the average UK worker.
Isn't it mad though, right, just before I go on to the next bit about how it's improved or not, that falls from height still seem to always be up there, don't they? You know, we don't seem to have, if they're the top statistics still, you know, what have we done with all that powered access? You know, it's just beyond me. Is it just because people possibly, I don't know, they don't know the dangers themselves, they think they're invincible, but as we said already, like older generations, like, you know, I consider myself part of that older generation now, as often says sites used to be like the Wild West, you know. So is it safer today, Mark? I don't want to go on about bureaucracy and slamming all the hard work that health and safety people do out there. That's not what this episode's about. But is the industry safer today, do you think?
Yeah, look, if we look at the information, the data, fatalities are dramatically lower now than they were in the 1970s, 1980s. We know from working on site, PPE standards are better than they've ever been currently. The machinery safety, you know, all the initiatives and everything, machinery safety is way better. Regulations are stronger. The CDM regulations improved all the planning. You know, there's a lot of work being done by the health and safety executive. So I would argue, yes, it is.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of good improvements, I suppose, in operators, working with operators, haven't we? You know, like the green zone, the different zones, the working zone, being aware that you're even walking into the zone, that there's that a machine is operating. And has there anyone been on site, and some of the way those operators, especially excavator operators, will throw that machine around. 1 minute it's facing away from you, the next thing it's knocked you in the head, doesn't it? I mean, I don't think people appreciate, but we've seen a lot of work on contractors trying to work with that. Liam Moore, as he said on there, we done a few weeks ago when we had Liam on, we done a work with Scutt. We done a really good video on the thumbs up, and everyone thinks that the thumbs up campaign originally started with just saying, oh, well done to safety. I think people have misinterpreted really what we originally wanted it to do when we started it off at Lynch with Scutt. It was about if you saw the operator give you the thumbs up, then you knew that he'd seen you. So I think, yeah, safe to approach. So the numbers suggest that you're saying then that the safety has worked.
Yeah, I mean, look, accident rates are significantly reduced. Major contractors invest massively in health and safety now. And of course, as we've seen with the stuff that's been coming through, you know, technology is improving risk management as well.
Yeah, so I think maybe, you know, as we said, we still get a lot of complaints. We still people get saying, oh, you know, health and safety this, health and safety that. It's become really excessive. And before I get your opinion on that, is it based around the fact that you know where we had the zonal stuff that works with excavators and machinery that and lorries, you know, where there was a buzzer all the time in the cab when someone came close, and a lot of the operators just switched off because they were so used to hearing it. So is it become too excessive then, do you think? That it's become maybe counteracting?
Yeah, I think that the thing is, look, we all know health and safety is a must. I think personally, it's the way it's implemented. How you implement the health and safety is actually the critical factor. The current situation that we've got, which answers your question, is possibly because paperwork is overloaded. Yeah. We've got a tick box culture, duplication, excessive inductions, and compliance becoming, performative. So, and I'll give you a couple of examples, right? I'll never forget this. I had an operator go to an induction once, yeah, and I rang him up. I said, "How'd you get on?" He said, "Yeah, I've done the induction." I said, "All right," and he said, "I've signed it and everything like that." I went, "Oh yeah." He goes, "The document I've signed is 105 pages long." Right. Now, bearing in mind that this is a few years back, bearing in mind that the induction was an hour and they've gone over a few things and got him to sign 105 pages, right? So at what point does he actually, let's be completely honest here, right? He ain't read the 105 pages, right?
No, of course he ain't, no.
And you've been happy for him to sign it and put him to work. And that's where I think that's where I think it's going wrong. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because if you hear a constant noise, it's not long before you hear the noise, right? When I worked years ago for a plant around Gatwick Airport. When I first worked there, I remember answering the phones. I couldn't hear anything for the planes going over. Yeah. After I'd been there about 3 months, I didn't even hear the planes anymore.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? You know, one of the things I noticed in the factory when I used to work when I was doing consultancy at that time of my life, I was working with a furniture factory, and he'd had one or two incidents with machinery to do with guards and stuff like that, and people take them off and they put them back on again probably. And I said to him, look, I don't know if this will work, but just along that lines of people getting, you know, you've got a nice blue sign there that says, you know, make sure you put the guards back on, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Well, why don't we get a set of different colour signs and change them every so many weeks? So exactly the same message, but have a green background and a red background and a yellow background and a blue background. And you know what? Our exactly what you just said there about, because you kind of got used to not hearing the planes anymore, exactly the opposite happened because of what you just said there. We changed the signs on a fortnightly basis and the accident rate dropped. Why? Because it wasn't something of the norm. It was like, oh, what's that? Something new. The brain's picked it up. Oh, there's a red sign. Even if people turn around and go, oh, it's red week. I heard that. It's red week this time. We'll be on green week next time. But at least they were talking about it and it was in their forefront of their mind, you know, to put the guard back on. And you know what? We didn't have any accidents. So maybe you're right there, because it becomes duplication and it becomes just a norm, doesn't it? So this is where, you know, we're talking about red tape really there, if we can call it that, Mark. You know, this is where the debate gets kind of polarising. Has health and safety become overkill?
Yeah, I mean, some of the arguments that we've certainly heard over the last couple of years is that people often talk about excessive paperwork, list permits, multiple inductions, AMs that nobody reads. I've heard that before, you know, and then of course all of that leads to productivity loss. So I understand that you need health and safety, and I maintain it again. It's the way it's implemented.
So do you think, how much time do you think that we're kind of losing with compliance?
Look, productivity is a major loss because, of course, workers spend hours on weekly paperwork. Major projects require huge compliance administration, of course. Safety staff numbers have increased significantly, haven't they?
So it's kind of an arse covering exercise, really. Everyone's so scared about someone getting hurt, and rightly so. I mean, I remember my old MD, and he insisted on the several businesses that I was looking after for him. This was the Ardmore Group, actually, Pat Byrne. And one of the things that I liked about Pat is he would then create, like in a meeting, he would insist that health and safety was number one on the thing, and you know, on the list before you got into anything. You know, before you got into why haven't we got the T on, or why, you know, health and safety was top of the list. And as he said, I don't want to go home. You know, or better, more importantly, I don't come to work to kill people, which is, I think, is a powerful statement for anyone out there owning a business. But somebody, and so therefore, what we're saying here, Mark, somebody says of that necessary because construction is still dangerous, yeah?
Yeah, look, I mean, bureaucracy, you know, protects lives. Compliance is driven by legal protection as well. We can't forget that. And of course, to some people, the fear of prosecution influences their behaviour.
Yeah, so what we're saying basically, maybe we're, you know, our company's actually protecting the workers or protecting themselves.
You know what? It's a really strong debate point, and sometimes it's both.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I often think to myself that if health and safety wasn't around, if there was, you know, would we do certain things because we think it's the right thing to do, or do we do it just because we know we're going to get in trouble for not doing it? And I strongly go on the second part. from what I've seen. I think that people would turn their backs on certain things to get the job done, basically. But let's bring it back to reality. What are the biggest killers in construction again today? Then, so I'm interested in what you said. That you said falls from height, and it's only because it was top of the chop pops 10 and 20 years ago. So give them back to me again.
Yes, so the main causes are, and you're right, number one is falls from height, two, struck by moving vehicles, three, collapse incidents, four, contact with electricity, and number five is machinery accidents.
Yeah, and that falls from height I'm still banging on about, but because I know there's been a lot of work done. If you don't have to get up there, don't get up there. I remember one story, Mark. And I suppose I want to probably highlight some of the problems that health and safety people actually have. So we were doing after sales. Ardmore was a developer, and we were doing after sales. But that's how I started. Now, I was working for a different business. I wasn't working for Ardmore at the time, but I'd learnt quite a lot about after sales, and I went to site, and at the same time, I'm talking, there was a thing called a treble 20 ladder that you would have hired out when in your old tool hire days, and that became illegal. You couldn't have a treble 20 anymore. It was too high and it's considered too unsafe to use one of these. Well, this multi-storey block of flats, can't even remember the height of it, had some guttering repairs that needed to be done. And I walked round the corner, and I swear to you, the guy was up a treble 20 ladder. God knows where he got it. Right? He had tied his ankle with a bit of rope to the balustrade of the balcony on one side, and the same to the other side. And he was drilling. and an old boy, and this is the mentality I think you come up against. When I pulled him off the bloody ladder, literally, and said to him to get down, what are you doing? I mean, imagine if that ladder had gone to be upside down, with his legs like a V shape, hanging with that two bits of rope. He could have been in there for days if nobody had seen him. And anyway, I brought him down, and I said, why don't you get a cherry picker, mate? You know what I mean? What's going on? He's going, I ain't got time for that and waste the company's fucking money. And people have generally got that mindset. One, they don't want to waste money, some of these people, and one, they ain't got the time. They just want to get in and do the job. And that's why I'm amazed still. Perhaps that's why falls from height still dominate. I don't know what you think on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the kind of perhaps the reason that it's happening, you've got these are the trades. You've got roofing, scaffolding. Then of course you've got the element of fragile surfaces, ladders, which is what you've just alluded to, and of course this is an important one. MUPE misuse, so MUPEs, mobile elevated work platforms.
Yeah, we've had a few accidents here. Yeah, I was going to say to you how many of these accidents are still kind of preventable, but I remember working in Bow. Again, I think this was a Durkins job, so sorry Durkins, I think you don't ever want me as an employer. We were young though, we were really young. And we were taking these chimney stacks down, as I said in the pilot, we were taking these chimney stacks down. And it was a job and knock scenario. And unfortunately, where we were in Bow, just round the corner was the HSC offices. So they just, lunchtime, they'd walk around and say hello. And I remember little things like we'd cut a V in our, because people nicked our hard hat, so you'd cut a V or something, or cut things in your visor or your hard hat, and they go, no, you can't use that anymore. You've broken it now. And you think, he's having these kind of battles. And one of them, Skinhead Dave and me again, right, was up there. I don't even know his second name. I'm calling him Skinhead Dave because that's what we called him. I don't even remember we're talking 25, 30 years ago, more. He was a good bricklayer, and we'd been up the top there. And all the time, he got caught throwing the bucket, on the ginny wheel.
Yeah.
Throwing the fucking ginny wheel, putting everything in there and just And the HSE caught us doing that. Someone had complained. And I remember one night, this is how bad it is, we had a look round. He put the black bucket. So we put the black bucket with all there was a sledgehammer in there, a couple of other bits and pieces, your normal bricklayer's tools, stuck it in there. Luckily not too many. And stuck the black bucket in the basket for the ginny wheat. And I was climbing down. And again, you weren't really using the ladder all the time. You were going via the scaffold. And he looked over and he looked left and looked right. And he just fucked it off down there because he thought it would be funny because he knew that the wheel would take it down. And it would shoot past me. Like, shit the life out of me, Well, it shot past me, no problem. It did shot the life out of me. But as he done that, the guy from the fucking HSE stepped in, moved the outer Harris fencing panel, moved in and stepped in. It smacked him straight on the head mark. Bang. Knocked him clean out.
Did it? No way.
Knocked him clean out. Yeah, old Dave, he was prosecuted for that. He was in front of the beak. You can imagine how the HSE nearly shut the fucking side down. That was in them days. How I got away with that, I don't know. I mean, literally, it shot past me. Fucking hell. Yeah. So these things, I'll tell you. So look, as I was going to say to you, are these incidents still preventable? Well, fucking course they are. If you don't do what we used to do. But so despite the paperwork, Mark, simple mistakes still kill people, aren't you? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because look, most serious accidents still come down to basic failures in planning, communication, or behaviour. That's the reason why.
So the human element is really the focus here, isn't it? So what we're saying is that overall, we're probably coming on site that it hasn't gone as far as what people have been moaning about. It's probably, probably doing okay. So, but let's moving away from the actual accidents. Because I generally believe, I've been on site a few times, and I think we have come on leaps and bounds, but I generally believe it's because obviously people get prosecuted differently now. I mean, the new way of prosecuting is a lot heavier on companies than it used to be. And when I first was involved in my first ever HSE case, where as a young supervisor, it was all about the case law. So when you went to court, this particular company went to court, and it was a case law. So basically, the judge would look and go, okay, well, so and so and so and so done exactly the same thing or similar thing, and they got fined 30 grand. There you go, 30 grand. Whereas the change in the health and safety law now, which is really, I think, is a great thing, is that it's kind of on a matrix system. It's a point system, isn't it? So it's about, are you a large company or a small company? So first of all, we're setting out the profitability on how culpable you are, then how actual culpable you are, as in what have you put in place, and then that tells you on a scoring system against how large you are, if you're guilty or not guilty, and what you pay, and you can't insure against that. People don't realise you can insure for health and safety, but it only covers your legal fees. The actual fine, if you get any fine now, has to come out of your profitability. And people don't realise that. So that's probably where everyone says we've gone over the top, but that's probably the reason. But then, by the sounds of it, it's made a bit of a difference. But moving on to something different, the topic of the last few years and the momentum that is going on, we've got friends Darren Barden, Steve Kerslake, Construction Sport and iTalk. As I say, there's a big mental health summit annually. This is a part of the industry that they avoid talking about for years is the mental health, but now it seems to be a bit, not a bandwagon, I don't want to call it that, but yeah, look, we're on it. They don't want to talk, they haven't wanted to talk about it for years. Some people still don't want to talk about it. What have we got on that, Mark?
Yeah, look, what you got to consider is, and this is obviously we're talking about the construction industry. It's got one of the highest suicide rates of any industry in the UK. Yeah,
Yeah, two deaths per day, as mentioned in the press.
that's what they were saying. It's unbelievable. I mean, look, some of the things are there's thousands suffering stress, anxiety, depression, long hours, and financial pressure are some of the major contributors. And according to some of the industry campaigns, workers often avoid speaking up. Well, we know this, don't we? It was a bit, Darren Barden does a lot of big campaigning against that. And that there is, unfortunately, in the construction industry, still a toughness culture. It still exists. Men aren't allowed to cry. They're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to moan.
But yeah, I get all that, and I'm going to say to you, like, we'll go into more depth about, these points of why construction's hit so hard mentally, as if you want to say it that way. But I think there's a lot of women in construction now as well. I think it's all sides. It's not just a masculine thing. But is it construction's fault, do you think?
Look, there's a few points to discuss around construction. I mean, we all know some elements have got long hours, potential for job insecurity, financial pressure, physical exhaustion. We talked last week about the physical demands, didn't we? It can be a male-dominated environment, although that's improving now, as you said. And then, of course, you've got the element of isolation because you've got people that are either working on their own or they're self-employed. If you've got a bricklayer up a scaffold, for example, he might be there on his own and only see people when other people turn up. You know what I mean? He's up there on his own all day.
Yeah, so then I thought I want to ask that question and get your thoughts on that, but on this. But, part of that argument, so I'm going to say, like, how responsible should employers be for workers' mental health? And part of that question and the example was one small contractor was like, why should I be held responsible because one of my employees is having a shit day or has been having it hard at home? How can I control that? And how far do I have to go? It's a very big debate, and I know that, for example, Steve Kerslake stands on one side, doesn't he, quite strongly to say, look, there should be legislation to say if someone jumps off the tower crane on your site, you should be held responsible because not enough was done. And the argument in that pub was it was equally balanced in the frustration of, look, I can't make any money anyway. We've had that episode 2%, and now at my 2%, I've got have a team of psychiatrists working next to the fucking painter and decorator. So how responsible should employers be? I'll ask again for workers' mental health, Mark. What do you think?
Yeah, look, the employer, of course, has to provide a safe environment, reasonable hours, have some support systems, yeah, and of course awareness training. That's really important. But the questions around that are: where does the employer's responsibility end? Can employers realistically manage personal lives? No, of course they can't. And is the industry expecting too much from businesses?
Well, this would be my argument. If I was still contracting, I'd be thinking, hold on a minute. I mean, even if I owned any business, if I decided, I come into work, I've done everything, Mark. I've done my awareness training, for you. I'll put a helpline on call, and you still decide that this is the time and the place, more importantly, for you to take action and commit suicide. How much culpability, I suppose it comes down to, is that of mine, and should I have any culpability? That's the argument. It's not how much. And I mean, if you came in and said, Mark, I'm having difficulties with my wife and everything else like that, and I don't really know what to do, and this is happening, that's happening, I'm suicidal, and I'd say, well, tell you what to do yourself, Mark, fuck off and go back to work and worry about that, and then you killed yourself, then maybe I'm a bit culpable. But isn't that like any member of your family doing that, or any member of you know, I don't know where it sits. Are we expecting construction firms to become counsellors to their employers? And I don't want to make fun of it, but, you know, as I say, do you need a health support mechanism literally next door or on site? I don't know, maybe that's a great thing. I think what Darren Barden's doing is that he's actually on site, isn't he, with a help mechanism and a clinic type of thing. So I don't know, what's your thoughts, Mark?
Well, look, I think, you know, mental health support matters, but I think with the big firms it might be easier because you can afford to get mental health people in and do the training and that. What about small businesses? You know, there's many small businesses that might be overwhelmed with responsibility for that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we could actually plug a bit of construction sport there, and Darren Barden's iTalk, because I think, especially with Steve, I think he does deal with a lot. They do deal with a lot of the main contractors, but they're also hopefully there as a mechanism, you know, for their. I think Steve's £100 a month. I think Darren's got a membership as well. It's a few pound a month where that you can reach out and support that. So I think what it is it's not going to go away, as in no one's going to say, oh, okay, we talked about mental health last year, so don't worry about it anymore, guys. I think it's always going to be there now, a bit like health and safety. So I think it's about setting ourselves up correctly. Now, the other thing about health and safety that people forget is that you've got a responsibility yourself. So ultimately, who owns the responsibility on site is a bit mixed, isn't it? Still.
Yeah, it's a shared responsibility, really, isn't it? Because you've got the employers themselves, principal contractors, site managers. Obviously, you've got the individual workers and the subcontractors. It's a bit of everybody.
Yeah, I suppose I'd say, you know, next question really is can you legislate common sense? I don't know.
Well, it's like we said at the beginning of this pod. I firmly believe it's how it's delivered, and even your example of changing the signs, yeah, because rules are important. Don't forget that, right? Rules are important. Behaviour is equally important because you can have the rules, but if the behaviour is not following the rules, what's the point? Yeah. But then culture matters more than paperwork. If you've got a safe culture and you're driving a safe culture, educating, training, learning, you've got a really good safe culture, that's more important than paperwork. We said that earlier in the pod, ticking boxes and going, there's my RAMs. Well, what have you learned? Are you really safe?
Yeah. No, I get you there. So is the industry, as we close up a little bit, Mark, you know, is the industry generally safer or just more compliant, do you think?
This is the punchline here, really, is that compliance doesn't automatically equal safety, and that's for people to remember.
Yeah, okay, well, before we have a final roundup then, construction has undoubtedly become safer. That's what we're saying today. But it's also become far more regulated, and maybe the challenge now is finding the balance, perhaps. Some people would argue against that. You know, protecting people properly without creating a culture where paperwork replaces responsibility. I think that's my thoughts on it, Mark. Your final takeaway?
I think my final takeaway on this is, look, safety standards matter, mental health matters, but culture and behaviour remain massively critical.
Yeah, so, you know, at the end of the day, folks, you know, because it is the end of the day and the end of the pod, no deadline, no contract and no profit margin is worth somebody not going home for. And I go back to what Pat Burns said to me, I don't come to work to kill people. I think that's enough for me. So remember, guys, if this hits a note with you, don't forget to share the episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Press that little bell button.
That's it.
Give us a follow.
Or is it up there? I don't know.
I don't know, wherever you listen to, whatever one it is, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever. I don't think we've got faces made much for YouTube, but we are on YouTube. We're probably better for radio. But look, thanks again, Mark, for your time, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And you, mate. Cheers, buddy.
The opinions expressed within this podcast are solely the individuals and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the sponsors or its affiliates.